First of all, I'd just like to apologize for the headline on this video, because there was a lot of people that use these kind of "this will change your life forever" things, and then tell you a lot of nonsense about tips and tricks. And this is what This is what changed the way. I mean, I've done that. There are things that I've discovered that have changed the way that I approach this. Not that I needed to change, because I sort of started with a clean slate 7 years ago. But I wanted you to get this thing, right? So I did that yesterday, right? And I was talking about this color as tone thing, so it doesn't really matter what the color is, it's the tone thing. And I'd seen this guy, you'll have seen him using soft pastels on Instagram, and he does courses as well. He does some amazing things. But the thing is that he creates form, but he doesn't use the right color, so he doesn't look flesh-like. And sometimes he uses colors that are not the right tone, but it still creates an aesthetic. Which leads me to believe that it isn't about him using colors to represent tone. It's about the fact that he just likes it to look pretty. So it's a design thing. But in the first instance, that's kind of where I was aiming. And when I first did I've got lots of these somewhere. I don't know where they all are, but there's one that's sort of a purpley, pinky blue thing. And at the time, I thought it was just literally grabbing the pastels out of the packet and whatever I had in my hand, I drew with it, keeping them limited, but I drew with it. So it was drawing, and but in color. And I did this yesterday, and then my friend Kevin said, and I was talking about using color, seeing color as tone, and he said that's a difficult thing for him now. This is where it all gets super interesting. When I started doing this, somebody said, working in charcoal, it may have even been me, but someone said that working in charcoal will improve your painting, and I think they were referring to the drawing element, the observational accuracy thing. But drawing in charcoal is what they said. Drawing charcoal will improve your painting. But this is where everything sort of falls into place. And so from Kevin's question about I had problems with seeing colour as tone, it started to become a bit of an epiphany. Now, I don't work from black and white images. I work from colour images. And I say every time, don't work from black and white images, because A, it sets up a goal. This is what it should look like, kind of thing. And B, it takes away desaturation takes away a lot of the tones that you can see as a with your eyes, but the machines can't, and they just calculate the nearest to whatever, depending on how well the algorithms are written. So that's the problem. So I always say that. But this is the thing: when I draw in color to black and white, I'm effectively seeing color as tone. You know what I mean? So I'm actually, when I draw, this was Sunday morning's lesson. So when I draw that from a color image, I'm transposing the color into tone. So I'm seeing tone, I'm not seeing color. So when it comes to working in color, rather than it being about working in color, which is, again, the problem is people want to draw. People want to, in the traditional sense, outlines, coloring. But when it comes to color, the same thing applies. It's still about tone, not the color. You know what I mean? That's the revelation. So in effect, it's exactly the same process as if I was working in black and white. That's the thing. So in a way, when the guy said working in charcoal is a great way to improve your painting, that's what they meant, because you learn to see tonal values, not color. So, and the problem with that and everybody else, When you're drawing a portrait, you're drawing a portrait. When you're drawing, you'll see me do this, and it's all a bit wild and all a bit crazy and all a bit all over the place. And that's what doesn't sit right with people, because it surely should be, engineered and constructed and deliberate. And that's one of the issues. The other issue is that we see primarily in color. We look at things, and this is the color that we see. We don't see anything. We don't see the world in black and white. So that's the dilemma that people have, and that's the thing that I think I've cultivated unwittingly. That I have this, I see tones because I'm constantly turning color into black and white. So that's what's trained my eye to see in the reverse as well. So this is another great reason why you shouldn't work from black and white, because you need to understand how color is represented in tones, in grayscale, so that you can do the reverse. So when it comes to painting or working in color, it's still about the tonal values, because the light gives life. That's it. And they talk about masses and they talk about large shapes and all the rest of it. It's the light that defines a subject, an object, a landscape. It's always about light. And that, that's the reason why the great painters would say they're like, painters of light. People like Sorolla and many, many others that would be considered to be painters of light. And I think Sargent might have said that as well. So that's it. So it's like this one thing. I know I've got a crappy Beatty headline on this video, but I wanted you to get this, because this will transform the way that, all the other things under our mindset, not caring what people think about what you do, and just being brave and experience the joy. Yeah, they're great, but in practical terms, and they are the fundamentals, but in practical terms, apart from just, as I said before, the dots and the shapes and the tonal thing, seeing tones, and this is not science. This is not about understanding the way the light sources come in and all the ball there and all that rubbish. It's none of that. You don't need science to see. You need to see, if you know what I mean, and not know, and not get into entangled within the knowledge of seeing, that sort of stuff, or being able to hold an object and turn it from different angles. Somebody was talking about planes this morning, because it planes, and this one thing had changed his life. And to be honest, his portraits look worse when he started using planes. To me, that's me. But and it lacked life and all the rest of it. Construction never works when you're painting things. You've got to see past the construction. And anyway, so before I go off on one, I'm going to draw this now. I'm going to draw in color from a black and white. So I'm going to do the reverse. Right. So if you think this is a draw along, or you want to see how well I can copy a photograph, forget it. Go somewhere else. This is not a video for you. This is stuff that's going to really change the way that you paint or draw, and it's going to make a massive difference to everything. But if you want to draw along, or if you want to see how well I copy a photograph, this is not the place for you. This is not the art, the kind of art that you'd be interested in. So I'm going to, as I said, paint or you work in color with a black and white reference. This is not a case of I'm going to make it look like it's color either. This is the other side to it. This is the thing that, you can do representational, which this is representational. Sort of applications, but you can do things that are more like this. And if you look at some of the contrived, what I call the contrived style oils, where it's not really, these are not really life colors. I think those are purples and oranges and browns and greens and all kinds of things. But it adhered to a tonal structure, albeit a little bit abstract. But so this is what this is about. So I don't think it's just going to be painted in one color. So I'm going to do this in my favorite color. So I'm going to start with the usual. I'm going to do it in purple. I seem to do a lot in this purple color. So we'll do it in purple. Don't ask me why. It's just this color. So I'm going to do it in that, right? But there are going to be other colors involved in it, but I need So some of the tonal aspects of it will be initiated with this, right? So they'll either be hatched or they'll be scribbles, or there won't be any blending, because you can't smudge this stuff or blend this stuff. But that's essentially what's going to happen. This will be predominantly the base drawing color, if you like. But the rest of it, I'm going to start to use colors that relate to the tone and not necessarily flesh tones. Again, that's a strange terminology. The flesh tones, flesh colors. They're flesh colors. They're not flesh tones, surely. Anyway, that's me being a bit pedantic, I think. But this is, as I say, this is the objective, is just simply to try and get this to be, I'm doing the usual. I'm doing the let's find out where everything is at stage first, and then I'll worry about the tonal aspects of it in a minute. I actually, when I did the one yesterday you saw me, I virtually drew it in one color, and I don't want to go too far down that road, because I want to make the point of it being about color as tone, as opposed to being a kind of an adornment of or a highlight of a element. I want the tones to actually do some work, so I don't want to go too far with drawing this. Because the beauty of this is, with it being a dry medium, it's still, it leans towards the drawing. There's still a function of it. Still feels like a similar function, but you've got the added benefits of overlays and color and all the rest of it, or color and a facility to overlay and blend. Right, near enough. So, as I said, taking away all the interference from the colors that I see. All I can see is tones, and I've got different colors to be able to do that. So I'm not going to try and make it a representative thing. I don't really want it to be a attempt at turning a black and white image into a color image, because there will be all kinds of complications with that. You're just going to mess your head up trying to do that, I would think. But I'm just going to look at the tonal aspects of it. So I'm trying to replicate the tonal values. So I'm picking colors that have an appropriate tonal value, a tonal level, and not considering whether or not it's flesh tones. That's the only thing I hate about these things. If I've not cleaned it before I start applying it, it's going to be a nasty dark thing, because it's got some of the previous colour on it. I mean, it's fairly clean on the end of the island, but somebody's picked up the colour there. So anyway, not really too much about that. So yeah, so this is, and I'm doing the usual sort of thing. I'm rectifying the drawing and whatever at the same time, but I'm still looking at this as if it was a tonal thing. Now, looking at it as, when you're doing it as charcoal, that's exactly what you're doing. You're looking at the tonal values that you see, and trying to replicate those. And if it's this way of drawing, the sort of the shape and tonal approach as opposed to outlines, it works a lot better. I don't think if you were outlines and colouring in kind of approach, you could do this, unless it was a contrivance of some kind. And I think one of the things that you've got to really avoid, if you can help it, is for it to be a contrivance of and deliberation, because then it kind of gets into this guy that does the soft pastel things. I think that's a tendency with him to do that. You can tell there's a kind of I'm going to deliberately use these three colors because they work well together, or they're trendy, or whatever. I don't know, but there's definitely a lack of spontaneity, I think, in the colors. But so if you're outlining and then coloring in, this is going to be pretty difficult to do. I think it's got to be responsive. You've got to respond to the tones that you see, regardless of the colors. That's the objective. So I'm kind of fixing the drawings at the same time as the as I'm applying the colors. So, which is quite nice, because you can fix the thing as you're working on it. So with it being what's the names? These things, oil pastels. I forgot what I was using then. So there is a tonal. You see, there's a tonal graduation there. You see. Now I can choose to do it with this, and I'll just let the thing sort of peter out, or I can put another color into there to bring that. It kind of comes into there, then down there, but it has to be the right value to go in there. So I've got this pink. You see, there's a pink there, so it could easily be pink. That's the right value there. It's if that's the primary one there, it gets a bit darker towards there, as you can see, because I've got the purple in there. So this purple here, this bit here, right, is that bit there, right? It's making that darker. Then it goes into the blue, right? This blue here, which is coming to about there, and then there's that bit there. The blue kind of, and this is the, as I say, I suppose this is a mid-tone. This one, I'm not going to talk about it like that, because I think it's just what you see, that whether it's mid, semi-mid, primary, I don't know, dark tones, light tones, whatever, just what you see, you know what I mean? Again, it's one of those things, you start analyzing things and giving it a reason and an excuse, then it's sort of the spontaneity goes from it. That's what I'm trying to get to. But I'll put that in there, and then there's it's a bit darker there under her ear there, and then down into her neck there, and then there's a bit of it there as well. So we'll do that, and then whatever light is there and there, we've got whatever light I use to capture that element, that tone, is what's going to bleed down to this. I'm going to use this. It's a flesh tone, but it's not really a. I'm not trying to, as I say, I'm not trying to make this look like flesh and capture that. But I'm using, as you can see, you see what's happening there. I think that tonally those two are quite similar. That's the problem. So that's not the right color for that in there. I'm gonna just put it in here because I'll tell you another thing as well about this stuff. When you're it's a bit like painting, and I always had this bad habit when I painted in watercolor. I always used a dirty palette. I never used colors that were I never cleaned the palette or whatever. I always let the colors bleed into each other. It was just something that an old watercolorist had told me when I was a kid, and it stuck. The thing about all colors contain the other colors and all that sort of simple stuff, but that's how he explained it. And so when you're painting something or drawing something, having the colors intermingle, if you like, infect or cross pollinate, shall we say, it just brings a kind of oneness to it. But tonally, that is the same tone as that. That's the problem with it. So I've got to either pump this up to change the tone of that, or I've got to knock this back. I think actually that's probably the base it needs to be. This is not dark enough. So I'm going to increase the purple into this. And this is another thing as well. This is probably peculiar with these oil pastels, is that I use a kind. You see what's changed? It's mad that, isn't it? It's mad that you can suddenly see that it does that now by just simply increasing the the overall density there. But as I said, you're probably not gonna get, when you're looking at the tones and you're looking at how colors relate to tone, you're probably not going to get it straight out of the packet. One of the things I've got when I'm when I'm kind of painting or when I see paintings is that if the colors look like straight out of the tube, it's always that. You know what I mean? I think it's very rare that you'd paint with the color straight out of the tube. It wouldn't ever be this exact color that comes out. And the difference that makes now, it's mad. But I would try and avoid using colors straight out the tube. I think there are artists that can do that. There's a guy that just he comes upon my Instagram and he gets three tubes and paints with those. Amazing, absolutely incredible. I don't think it's it's a bit like me. I mean, I arrived at the understanding of tones as a consequence of primarily thinking in that way and only working in black and white. So it's almost like a side effect of my approach. And I think he probably has the same thing. I think this is the thing you don't see. When people say, "Look at this, look how good I am," you don't know there's 10 years and thousands of hours that's gone into that. Whatever they're going to share with you, it still took them 10 years to get there. You know what I mean? So that's the truth of it. I think always the truth of it. I think there's this kind of knowledge I'm sharing with you now is just crucial. It's critical stuff. but there's still some work to do. You know what I mean? This is not a tips and tricks thing, which is why I was a bit worried about the headline on the video, you know, because I ain't doing no tips and tricks for you. You want tips and tricks? There's plenty of videos that'll do that. If you want tips and tricks, you don't get what this is all about. But now, see now, look what's happening now. This is an interesting thing as well, density-wise. You see, there is this tone, there is that slight lighter tone. There's a mid-tone there, and then it kind of, in fact, it just gets slightly darker there, as you can see, just slightly darker there, and then into the eye. So look how that, not understanding that those tones have a hierarchy, look how that throws that out. Now, some people might think that that's a creative, crazy way of doing it, and be quite happy to, have it like that and leave it like that. Then that's fine. I have no problem with that. It's just, but if it's just that if you're trying to create a realism about something, you're going to have to adhere to the hierarchy of tones, regardless of the color. So I've got to. I'm putting this down initially. One of the things I said yesterday about the woman and the beady man was that there is a significant amount of underpainting with these things, which is back to this. I don't like to see it straight out the tube thing. So I'm going to have to move it back because I can't work when the thing's too close. I need to evaluate. The same reason I have to work at a distance from the drawing that I'm doing. I have to evaluate everything on the face, and I can't do it if I'm too close. Yeah, so as I say, I'm gonna now look at fixing all this tonal imbalance that I've got there. Okay. So this is interesting as well. Can you see how that looks wrong? Well, the reason why that's wrong is this. It's not because this is wrong. It's because that's wrong. So there's a discrepancy. Watch what happens if I can find. I'm going to have to use black for this. No, I'm not. I'm not going to use black because I'm not. I don't want it to be that kind of image. I've got a brown that might pump the density up. Like I say, I'd rather it be colours as opposed to something like black, which has got obviously it's got a density that you could rely on. You can say, oh, it's black, it's dark, it's dead. It's obviously a black dark colour. I'm trying doing it with this brown, but I'm not sure this brown is going to level it up. It's better though. Look, you see, it's better. We'll do it with brown, and then we'll see if it'll. I could have done it with a red, because red's pretty good at creating density. I'm going to just do it red. She could just have red hair. Let me do it with red because I've got some great somewhere. What's this one? Looking for one that's let's see if it'll do it with it. Well, that's going to be a little bit of a. Oh no, it's all right now. So I'm going to do it with this simply because it's the right density, not because it's the right color, which is probably a good way to illustrate this. What I'm trying to get across. I don't know what's going off there. I'm just scribbling and it's so now this is the other thing as well, is that when there's a hierarchy of colors like this, and let me just obliterate that I do with that little? I think it was this one, not. Let me just get rid of these. Oh, what's happening there at all? Okay. I think that's apart from a bit of fiddling. One of the things about the tonal hierarchy thing is that, and this is back to balance. And I think I've done some videos on balance. I was trying to put all the videos into groups because apparently YouTube doesn't recognize who I am and what I do. So I've been putting them into playlists to try, and this morning, and I'm going to do loads of what's the names, shorts. Apparently that's something else that I need to do in order to get YouTube to recognize me. Anyway, no, that's not the matter. But yeah, I talked about balance of things, and once you set a tonal value that is, an extreme, it could be a light or a dark, you have to everything that relates to that in the same value relationship. It's got to be balanced and comparative too. So it can't, if it, like, this is what I'm doing now, because this is setting the density levels here. So there are other things on this face that have to adhere to that, and that's what I'm doing now by using the red. But you can see how it works. It's not about, as I said earlier, it's not about trying to make a replica, a black and white image appear to be a color image. It's not about that. It's really, the exercise is really about seeing tones. So, and to be honest with you, when I did I said about the first one I did when I think there's a short for it somewhere. Have a look. It's purple and blue, I think. I can't remember. But it was a deliberate thing. It was a bit like the guy, the soft pastel guy, although I wasn't trying to do it like he does it. But it was limited in that I've seen him. He just has a handful of colours and works with those colours and makes them work. And it was like that. I literally only got that little packet, that one, of these things, and I just worked with what I got, and kind of knew I wasn't going to be able to make a representative color-wise drawing, and I didn't want it to be just a drawing in one color, which is what basically it could be. And sometimes I do make just like with the soft pastel ones, these ones, these kind of things. I'll just do a soft pastel. This is Conte pastel. I'll just keep it within. And I didn't want to do that with these things. I wanted it to be more have more shape. I'm just going to try and pump up the this here, the density, because there's too much of a disparity between those two things. You see, it's better now. The other thing about these as well is that there is this cumulative overlay factor thing, where you can put colors over the top of other colors and create the effect of a different tone. If you like blending or mixing the pastels. So I'm gonna just put more of the red on, just because it's going to end up where I'm going to blend it in some way and add more to the hair. But for now, I'm just going to keep it as a loosely defined thing. But it just needs. The thing is that when I draw like this and there's I sort of commit to the hair or a larger shape of it that's on the head. I just need to make sure that I understand the shape, the overall shape of it, in order to compare with everything else. So it has to, it has to be clearly defined in my vision. This thing about you put the darks down soon and all that, too soon and all that kind of thing. There is a time when I get to it when I need to be able to see everything in relation to everything. That's what I'm trying to get to. So, still working on the tonal value side of things, and not the color things, the color side of things, and I'm still applying more colors over colors in order to get to a point where the tones feel right. Instead, I don't think you can just get it out of the tube and it'll be the perfect tone, because that's what Kevin was saying about recognizing the color as tone. I don't think you could do that. You might be able to, and I'm sure there are people out there that can do it. But for me, this is drawing is always going to be accumulation of marks, and it's a progressive process. It's not an instant. So I'm just looking at these and don't know whether or not we want to do a shoulder there, but she looked like she's got one of them masks on. When the women that have them masks on that for the skin, she got one of them on. Yeah, so we're just going to put these sort of things in lightly, because it's always going to be, yeah, that's okay. Now the other thing about this is that there is this, and it's partly what I've just said about the predominance of this one color that makes it look like she's got a mask on. So back to this everything relates to everything idea, and suddenly look at what happens when I put color there. You see what I mean? It starts to relate. Everything starts to relate. So I've got to now, because this tone here is this tone here. They're very similar in terms of value. It's very similar. So by putting color into this, or the color that I'm using for this mid-tone or whatever you want to call it, it will connect everything. Just as the darks had to connect with the darker parts of her eyes and things, this has got to connect as well. So I've not really thought about it, but she's looked a bit like they're one of those what's that, underwater tall blue people. She's like one of them. What do they call that? Avatar. She's a bit like one of them. She's the same color as an Avatar lady. Yeah, so this color is going to now start to work into the other parts of the face. These are the because they're all similar values. There's still a problem where discrepancy in terms of a little bit too light in there. So I'm going to fix that. Although this color is the same value as that. So, I mean, it's helped. You can see it's just knocked it back a little bit, but we see how it gets darker there. And it's created an edge there as well. There is a lighter part of it there that sort of comes down here, and there is a darker edge, but it's better like that. You see that darker bit there? That's not good. So I can take that out, and then there's the. I'm gonna put this color on here. Yeah, I mean, I know it's not as dark as that, but I'm going to put that on there. And then there's a kind of looking at that, there's just a softening of it just there as well, and then back up to there. and then the nostril, and then the highlight in her eye, and then this here. I think this there is some connection between these shapes, and as the tone comes around there, and then there's that darker part of the neck guide, a muscle thingy, and then down to the the shoulder part of it, and then there's a bit in there like that. And there's a window showing. I don't want to get into all that because there's a window cast across her face, so I don't want to get into all that if I can help it. Yeah, so it's starting to work. See, I tell you what is a real problem. I mean, I have it with black and white things. When you get a highlight appear, and you don't bother to look at it, but it's just it deforms things because it's not really a highlight. It just tends to be lighter there. It's not a highlight. It doesn't want to be sparkling away in the back. Sometimes people like sparkly bits of white showing through, and sometimes I leave bits of white showing through in a sparkly kind of way, but it can cause problems because it's one of those, it's not always a highlight, and you kind of get seduced by this wow, look how good that looks. It's the highlight on the end of the nose thing. People get seduced by those things, and sometimes they bring like this eye with a little sparkle, and it would bring it, make it punchy. But sometimes they kind of work against the whole structure of it, and sometimes you're reluctant to do anything about it because it looks great. Look at how great it looks like that. So it's one of those things. You've got to be mindful, I think, of the highlight thing, and just to stick to the idea or stick to the it's all about the tones and the structure of the tones, the hierarchy of the tones. There is also this, as this comes up here and it comes there and then up there, and like that shape there that I've got there. You see how light it is there. It's not light there. There's a slight edge to it, and it's probably parallel to the tones that are here, but it's not that light. You see, it's pushing it out. So that needs to be rectified. Now, I'm trying not to use the same colors all the time, and I'm going to try and find a blue, if I've got one that can cope with the sudden surge in density. This might do it. So I'm going to put that in there. Yeah, already it looks better, and see whether or not I can get that. Yeah, like that. Kind of worried about that blob there when I first started, and it's actually ended up that colour anyway. It's not really. It's probably that was serendipitous. It's still the problem is now that's not familiar with this. It's darker as it is and as it should be, but it's not familiar with this tone or this colour here. And I've either got to amalgamate the two like I am doing, or I've got to make it more familiar, and I can do that by just introducing the purple onto it, and it will suddenly become like it relates to that. Again, this is probably peculiar to the more to the oil pastels that you can literally blend and say amalgamate stuff, but not. I mean, it happened obviously happened with paint, but yeah. And then I'm going to use the blue that's predominantly everywhere just to act as a blender. And just give it a little bit of a nudge in this kind of direction as well. So it's not, it just feels like it belongs. So I've got to just make it a little bit lighter. Okay. Now the hair isn't quite dark enough, as you can see. It hasn't got, the hierarchy is not, still not dark enough there. So it's going to have to be, it's either going to have to be the purple that makes it darker, which it doesn't work, look, or there's a darker purple than that. Well, this one might make it work. No, I didn't even touch it. So it's going to have to be the brown to actually pump that up. And that doesn't touch it either. So, and that's the problem with, one of the main problems with these things is that they'll make the surface so smooth that you can't apply anything to it. But again, it's getting used to using these things. I mean, I'm not really that experienced with them. I've used them 10 times maybe. How many videos are on here with oil pastels? About 10 times probably. But yeah, you can see it's better now. It's getting darker. So we've gone from, this is the other thing as well. We've gone from purple to red and now to brown over the top of it, which is just really making it a very dark red. Okay, but it's still brown, but it's more like an oxblood brown. Somebody, I put it on what's the name yesterday, TikTok. Somebody said how you can do that with oil pastels. She just didn't understand. I'm thinking, I'm doing this now and thinking, I don't understand it either. I have no idea. I have no idea. And I'm just, as I said, this is the whole point of this, is to prove that it's a tonal exercise. You know, it's not an attempt to be a photo replica or any kind of like, yes, this was a little bit like that, I suppose. Inevitably it ended up really, and I was, you know, when I was putting the vest on it, I mean, I probably talked about it. I didn't really want to put the t-shirt on it. I just, because it became like a realistic replica of a photograph, you know. So I wanted to keep it away from that, because then I have a different mindset for that, if that was the objective. But having said that, I know that doing this, you've got to sort of give in to the journey. You know, the portrait goes in a particular direction because of all kinds of factors. And it may be practical, it may not be, but you just have to go with that. You can't have a definite outcome in mind with doing this, and more so when you're doing it like this, when you're trying to work with the tones. I mean, I would never do this. I'd never work with a black and white image, even if I were working black and white, as I say. But this is just an exercise in working with colors that aren't the correct colors, and it's more about the tone of things. I'm going to look for this mid-tone that's on the the highlights of the hair, so I can try to bring in some of the variance into there. There's a not sure it's going to do it that well up there, because there's no. Oh, it might do. It might do. Yeah, it might do. I'm just thinking about the this is not a light color, but it seems to. There's a problem there. You can see there's an edge there. Though the relationship between those two isn't right. It's too abrupt, and they're also similar tones. You see how those tones are so close. So making that darker didn't really help the hierarchy, because I couldn't get this any darker. Now then, that's another thing. So tonal balance, or tonal scales, or that people talk about. For me, it's always tonal balance. If you cannot achieve a given density, everything has to fall in line with that scope. So if your tonal scope is complete black to white, and but that's fine. You've got the whole range of tones between it. But if your tones, the darkest I can go is there, then the relationship with those two have to be adjusted accordingly. So I have to, and then if that changes, then all of this changes. So that's what you've got to do. You've got to be aware of these, the relationships with tone in line with your capabilities in terms of what you can achieve with the medium. So I think I learned that from, this is another one of those learnings from practical reasons. You know, I learned that from having, you see how it's changed, like it's mad, isn't it? I learned that from working with unpredictable charcoal, because it was always, sometimes it would make the right value and other times it wouldn't. So when it didn't, I had to adjust everything accordingly. So that was, and as I said, these things happen to me, and I'm not really doing them by intention. And so this idea of seeing tones from in the color image, which then meant that I could paint in whatever color I needed to paint in, or I could see the tonal values in colors. That was just a consequence. It wasn't intention at all. It just happened. I think the thing is that knowing that they're there. This is one of those things where, you know, the thing about geometry and anatomy won't make you a better measurement, and geometry won't make you a better artist, but knowing that they won't make you a better artist will make you a better artist, if you know what I mean. It's one of those things. It's like it's a knowing thing. So as I said, the limits of the medium is probably one of the most important things when it comes to the things like, well, mostly the tone. I mean, I think that the color thing is, and it's always like, you know, it's complicated with color, because you know, you can either, I mean, I see these, you've seen them, these really great portrait artists that have got massive palettes, and you know, and they're able to paint these masterpieces, you know, and every detail, and that it's just sheer technical skill. And I think really I don't have time for that. I think it's probably my age that and what happened to me with the cancer, that I've become much more, you know, focused on getting stuff done rather than spending time over things that are just, to me, appear to be just unnecessary. And I think that's my age and what happened to me with the cancer. But yeah, area is massive, isn't it? It's not. It's just. It's in the right place. It's just not that big. So it's going to get an ear job. You know, the nose is rhinoplasty, is it? What is it when you have your ears made smaller? Can you have your ears made smaller? That's the question. That's the question. You just have to grow your hair over them. You can't have your ears made smaller, surely not. That's not a thing, is it? That sounds like agony, doesn't it? Sounds like that terrible thing they do to dogs when they cut their ears off. That's terrible. But no, it's a little better, that, isn't it? I'm looking at the alignments of things there. It's a little better there. Always drawing, never stop drawing. That's the other wisdom, I suppose. Never stop drawing. It's right to the end. You're drawing all the way to the end. Yeah. Now we've got tonal issues there, because that horrible highlight in there, you see it. So that's going to be the blue thing. That's going to be into that with the blue. And then they're actually, I've got them in my hand at the moment, so they're very sticky, so I can get some coverage with them, at least, you know, to rectify stuff. I think when I was drawing the guy's ear yesterday, I was thinking about the attempt that I was making to make it more ear-like, and it kind of, like this is doing it, you know, it kind of evolved out of that. It wasn't a case of, oh, it's exactly the way it is. It just became more and more shape orientated and less about the precision of the, you know, the inner ear shapes and things. You can see it on the drawing. Half of this is because you can't, they're impossible to work with. Look at the tonal issues there. Right? So that tone needs to be more like that tone. So that has to go down to be a similar tone to there. There is a little bit of a highlight there, but it's very much as it is here. There is none of this blue here, which is, but that's kind of interesting. The fact that the color is, I'm referring to the color as a tonal entity as opposed to the color. You know, the blue is too tonally too light. I mean, there's the other thing about it is, and I'm feeling the pull right now, is that there's a kind of tendency to want to make everything the same color, so it graduates from blue. You know what I mean? There's a tendency to want to do that, and I'm feeling that now, to want to make it that that kind of familiar blend thing. But I think that's probably a personal thing. I think you might choose to do that. You might choose to make it more, because it makes it look more connected, I suppose, is the word I'm looking for. Now, it's got a background to it there, but I'm not going to put the background on. I'm not going to get that to, you know, get to that kind of complication. The other thing about it is, and you can see it in this, is that there are times when it's just simply a case of applying a color to it, and it's not just about the tonal value, but it's something about the way it looks. It looks aesthetically pleasing. I think there are times when you're doing this that you're gonna be faced with that moment where, yeah, that looks good. You know, that one. As opposed to, oh, I'm trying to replicate all the tones and make it all balance right and everything else. You still want to do that. You can't get away from that. But at the same time, I think there is an element of I don't know if the word design, but you know, the aesthetic kind of response thing. It just looks pretty. I mean, the colors as they've evolved now, and as I've tried to make them all familiar, you know, connecting, blending, and hatching between one and another, it becomes much more of a it becomes more effective because of that, because all the colors are all working together and they're all, as I said, familiar. Tonally, initially it was all about the tones, but it's become about those colors. That's what it's become about. So Yeah, I think it's working, and I just think it's a great exercise, to actually have a go at, to see whether or not you can see in tones as opposed to just in color, and see color as tone as well. But I still think it's down to if you can draw in charcoal, you can probably work in anything if you adhere to the tonal aspects of it. And I know there's a lot of people, it's not about the tones, it's about detail, and it's about replication and all the rest of it. But really, light gives form, as I said earlier. Light illuminates form. That's not me saying that, that's what I'm saying, but and that's the truth of it. Regardless of how detailed you're going to be, you have to illuminate the forms, and seeing that and understanding that I think is critical. Right, I'm going to leave it at this because I'm just going to be playing with it and pushing it around. And I quite like the way it's worked out. It's good. As I said, I think the tones are still a little bit of a distance between those two. Some would tempt to blend, I think, but that's what I said about the pull. So the pull is that I blend that blue into there. I'd rather say, well, let's just fix the tonal value. Let's fix it so it doesn't jar as it is doing, and pushing the jaw out as it is doing. Let's fix that. So what color is it that I'm going to have to put on there to actually fix the tone, to bring that more in line with that? The problem is with a lot of it is that there's a sparkle to it. There's this here. So accumulative breakouts, if you like, in the strokes will create a tonal value. It's the reason why you put lines on, and you can affect a tonal value with lines on it. It's the same thing. So if there's a breakup of the line, or the tone that you've applied, if it's breaking up and it sparkles, it will affect the tonal value. Right, as I said, I'm going now. I'm going to fiddle with it a bit more, and if I'm on later, I'll show you how it turned out. If not, you'll see it on the socials, and have a go at doing it. Have a go at working in black and white, working on a black and white reference in color. But like I say, it's exactly the same as working with charcoal, but in reverse. It's the same thing. That's if you work from color image, that is. That's a lot of people like to work from black and white, but it's not a healthy way to do it. So looking at that as the distance there. I'm still looking at that, and the pull is towards making it blue. The pull is to put blue onto there. To put blue lines onto there, or blend it in some way. That's the first response, I suppose, is to do that. But I don't want to do that. I want it to stay with colours that don't seem right. But still look right. I think it's one of those things. If you can draw the tones of something, no matter what color you use, it will always look right. If you can get the tones right. Right, as I said, I'm going to leave it at that, and then I'm just looking in my hand to see whether I've got enough. I wanted to bring that there to put these curls in her hair there. Okay. I'm going to leave it to that. I might fiddle with bits and bobs on it, but yeah. I mean, scanning through it now, we're talking the tonal problems with it now are, I can't position this, you see, here, right? The tone's not right there. This still has to be, even though it's lighter, it needs to be darker. You see, these elements that show through it aren't, they're just diluting the strength of it. And really, this tone here, that one should be the same as that one. But the problem is, I don't want to go blue. There's blue there, so I need to simulate that tone somehow there. And then it gets slightly darker here, or slightly lighter here, shall we say, and then darker down here, and then there's highlights and things, and then whether or not the width of the nose could be slightly different. That's definitely too dark there. But yeah, you can see. I think it's probably what's happening now is that it will become, because as you apply color to it, it becomes more like the hair has suddenly become auburn, and you're kind of naturally drawn to make it look more auburn because of make it more realistic. It couldn't have been green, which it should have been green. I haven't got a green that's that color, so you just sort of work with what you've got. What does it say? You can only weave with the one you've got. So, but I would have, as I said, used another color maybe, because the danger is that when it becomes a little bit too realistic in color, that you will drift towards making it realistic. And the point of this is to override that desire and to simply see the tones and draw the tones. So, if anything, that is a problem, and but I don't think it's a problem in terms of what I've tried to talk about. So you can still get what I'm saying and still try and do it yourself, to learn, I suppose, the tonal approach kind of thing. If anything, I would say concentrate on the charcoals. Learn to do it through charcoals, working with charcoal, because you will. It's easier for a start off. You will not have you don't have the need to compare and find solutions, to replicate a tonal value, because it's just monochrome, so you don't even consider that kind of stuff. So I would say learn that, and that in turn will then help you to see tones when it comes to working in colour. I'm doing it again quite close up, but it really does hurt my eyes to put this close to a source image. It's not good. As I say, I need to get that, to get rid of the sparkles, really, to bring this to stop this from appearing to be lighter than it actually is. And it's better, but it's still got this sudden leap from one to, it's better there, look. And then the yeah, well, yeah, better. So I've not had to really amalgamate the colours too much and bring in too much blue into that. And I'm probably going to just, in terms of this, it might well just be a case of, you know, to get it to the right value. It's still the problem with the. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I've got these blender thingies. I don't know whether or not these will apply a colour or just blend. Rubbish they are. That's not going to get used again. Yeah, so I'm going to just do that, and then probably use a lighter colour, which is probably what the blending version of these is about anyway. But just use a lighter colour. Although you can see it's getting there, isn't it? Now it's starting to get there anyway. So I'm not going to bother with it. I think I'm just going to leave it. There's too much of a highlight there that was to be killed. And then yeah, I say the problem is that I made it a bit too. What did I use for that hair? I've lost the colour I used for the hair. I think it was this one. I made it a bit too like real hair. So it gets the point being, it gets interpreted as an attempt to make real hair, and rather than a, you know, a representation, you know, an abstraction or whatever. And that's the. I mean, one of the things, the other things I say about, you know, doing this is that you got to embrace the suggestion and implication thing, because if you do it properly, the viewer fills out the, you know, they'll fill out all the details for you, because whilst you're trying to make it look real, they'll always compare it with reality, implied that there's reality there, and they'll complete the picture. And that's kind of the trick. That's the trick that you'd see Sargent doing. You know, we kind of imply that there was glasses there, or he'd imply that the fabric did this or whatever, and he'd let the viewer then complete the picture. Really clever stuff, and I'm pretty sure he knew what he was doing. You know, but people don't talk about that kind of skill. Like, they just want to talk about his brush strokes and his, you know, and his palette and whatever else, you know. But that skill of suggestion implication, that's a proper skill, is that. But that might be the impressionist thing. it might be that, you know, people will say in Impressionism there is an element of suggestional implication, and they might say that that's what he was doing, and that, so consequently that's why he was called an impressionist, impressionist realism, or whatever it's called. But yeah, I'm just kind of killing things off at the moment just to see if I can bring the balance back in a bit. It's not far off that though, you know, the balance is not far off there with that. So, as I said, this is a really important thing. It might not seem like it is, but it is really important to be able to see tones in color, colorized tones. It's a really important thing. Right. Let's say I'm going to leave this at this because I'm just starting to draw it now, so I don't want to get into that at all, really. Yeah. Okay. Interesting that though. Interesting exercise that is you know, in terms of doing this. It's like, I mean, I won't do it again. I don't feel the need, if you know what I mean. But it, from a point of view of what Kevin said about he couldn't see or having difficulty seeing the colours as tone. It's a good exercise, but then the real reason is you get back to the charcoal thing. It's back to, if you're good at charcoal, if you can convert from black, from color to black and white, you've already got the skill. You just have to reverse it. So it sort of points towards that deficit, really, if anything. Right. Excuse me. Yeah, definitely. She's Avatar, and the Avatar woman. There is an element of realistic feel about it, though. And she could easily have been lit by a blue light, and you know, it would look like that. Anyway, I'll catch you later.